Oh, hey, it's been a while in this setting, hasn't it? Yeah, I think from now on I'm gonna make tutorials on diapers.
Someone asked me how once you understand the box and drawing the box and they have that, how do you then rotate it or how do you draw parts that you rotate? And I looked around in my YouTube library and I did not find a video tutorial that explains rotating boxes, which is surprising because it is a very basic thing. So maybe I'm getting old and it's somewhere there, but I didn't find it. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna learn how to rotate this box. But for that, I'm expecting a couple of fundamental, well, ideas for you guys to know. I want to see that you know how these lines are parallel, even though if we draw them in perspective, they will have a small angle, right? So all of these are parallel. And I want you to be able to construct a box in perspective, in 2 or 3 point perspective. So this is a prerequisite knowledge. If you don't know it, I'll try and put a link up there to my fundamentals videos and hopefully that will help. All right, so what we want to do is rotation is usually around an axis, like wheels rotate around an axis. Our planet, right? Our planet rotates around an axis. So we need to find the axis around which we want to rotate our cube. Easiest one is the one that goes through the center. So how you find that is you take one face, let's say this face here, and you do 2 diagonals, and where they meet, that's the center of your face. So one diagonal would go, so one diagonal would go like this, and the other one would go like this. And to find this axis that goes through there, you would do the 2 diagonals in the back and then just connect these 2 points with a line. And this is your axis. Now, so I don't have too many lines. I am basing on your knowledge that we know that this diagonal here is parallel with this line, this line, this line, and this line. These are the edges. Like these are all parallel, all going into the same vanishing point. So for me to have less lines and the drawing is clearer, so I can explain clearer, I know that this line that comes out here, that goes through, which I'm not going to draw, I know that this has to be parallel with this. So all I have to do is draw a line from this point which will be parallel with these lines. So I know that this will be my rotational axis, right? So that one we know. This is perpendicular on that face. Now, rotation usually is a circular motion, right? So next good step is to draw the circle in that fits into this face. I'm going to use a different color just so we don't get confused. Not this one. Let me just choose a light orange. Okay, let me rotate this a little bit so I have a better angle. There you go. This is our ellipse. And keep in mind, I'm doing freehand, so nothing is gonna be perfect. Nothing is gonna line up perfectly. And also when you draw for yourself, don't get frustrated when things are not perfect, just adjust it so it looks good. This is all for the eyes. We're not doing mathematics here. Now, we have this ellipse now, and we're gonna use this ellipse to rotate our square. Now, the easiest part, and let me switch, well actually no, I don't switch colors yet. We want these edges or lines to rotate. What I want to do now is draw lines that are perpendicular here and also here, because this is the easiest way for me to see how the rotation goes, right? Because if this line rotates, then everything will go with it. So now I go to a new layer, and I also switch colors to a nice green because we used already blue. And let's say I take this line, and from this point I'm gonna rotate it this much, or I can rotate it a bit more, that much. Now this line only goes until that point and that point because our circle cuts it off. And here, this is where our line touches the circle. And at that point, we know that it is a 90 degrees angle. So we can extend these lines, something like this. And we can do the same thing for this line as well. So this line went here. Now this line goes where? We have two approaches here. So we try to keep it as simple as possible. One approach is to look at this angle, and then in perspective, let's use the same angle, but of course, because perspective, it's a little bit skewed. You will sort of feel this. After doing this for many times, you will get to feel like, okay, if I have a circle here, and if from this point I'm pushed it this much, then this will get pushed that much. Doesn't look like the same circle same angle when you measure it, but in perspective, it will be the same stuff. I find it much easier to draw the center line from here, because I know that my center line here, basically this line, is going to be parallel with these two. So what I do is I draw it like that, and then I know like, oh, this point and this point is where it touches our ellipse. So we're gonna close our square, in this case, because it is a square, that's what I drew, there and there. You can also take a look if these are parallel, because then so these lines, wherever they touch our ellipse, have to be parallel with this as well. So make sure that it's parallel. There we go. So now you basically repeat this in the back. You find the center, you draw your ellipse, you draw the same lines, and then you can always do these connections, like you project these lines there. There's a simpler way though, in my opinion at least. We know that we're gonna have these edges of our square, and like these are already visible. So the next step is just to find where this line begins. And it's a very easy, you take a look, I'm going to do it in red, just so we have a bit of redness. We take a look at this line. Where does it intersects this line there. So we're just going to project it over here. There we go. So this will be our same line, and it intersects it here. So we project it over there. So now if I go back to our greens, all I have to do is draw a line through those 2 points, and I have my parallel line. And from here on, I just know from this point, I have to draw a line parallel with that one, which is somewhere here. And of course, for the back, I don't care now, but we could also do the back. I'll just draw parallel lines again with this one first, and then from there up to there. And now if I turn off everything, there you go. This is your box, and here it is rotated. And let me make the lines a bit stronger. At least the outlines. There we go. See, it is that simple. Many times I find myself not wanting to rotate the box from the center, but maybe one of the edges. And this is the nice thing what I said before, that the rotational axis, let's do red again. I like red, it's a good explanation color. The rotational axis, I thought I switched to red. What is this? There we go. The rotational axis for the nth time is parallel with the edges, because that means that we can use any edge anywhere as a rotational axis. So instead of constructing all of this stuff, what we are going to do, let me do it like this, we're gonna declare this, let's say, our rotational axis. And then we still want to do like this type of rotation. So now what we have to do now, and now I'm going to construct in green again, is find our ellipse again. And this time, since this is our this edge here, is our rotational axis. Even if we look back, where do I have it? Here. Remember these orange lines, which was like, this was half of our ellipse, our circle. Like this edge here is that exact half. So, which means, actually, since I drew with yellow before, or that orange, whatever that was, is it this? No, doesn't matter. I am going to try and draw with the same orange, which means that if this is half, if we continue this for sort of like the same distance, and we continue this, sorry, downwards, let me zoom out a bit for the same distance, this will be our box. So again, I am eyeing it. I'm trying to make sure that this is sort of the same distance as this. Of course, because we're in perspective, this is just a little bit bigger than this. Okay, let me take away this so it doesn't confuse us. And then I draw these lines here, like that, and also there. And then I close it up sort of like here as well. So our box is this, and into this box, I drew this box because I want to fit that ellipse into. For that one, I'll just switch back a little bit to blue, and that ellipse will be somewhere here. Okay, I could draw it a little bit better. But once again, don't stress yourself if it's not perfect. There we go. Something that I didn't say before, well, I said it, but with with the wrong words, is that, so I said where these touch, it's perpendicular. This is also called collinear, I think, collinear, right? Collinear. So all of these are collinear. There we go. So now it is the same story again. So I'm gonna switch to my green. We didn't use it yet. And from this point, I draw a new line that is rotated by this much. This is my rotation angle. Here we cut these off. And this is where, if we draw a line that is perpendicular onto this green, like this, right? That is going to be a collinear line with our ellipse. And then we have this here and this here. Now, once again, we draw a parallel with these two collinear lines. And excuse me, but I learned these terms in not English, so my pronunciation is not fantastic. And now where these two touch, we can erase everything outside of it, and we know that we have collinear lines again. Basically, this is the same as this, but after the rotation. And to do collinear, all we have to do is do parallel with that line, and that's going to make sure that this is collinear. There we go. This is it. All right. And this is our circle, and now you can rotate based on this edge as much. Like we have several rotation options, but let's just go with this one. I will do a purple. This will be our box after rotation, right? If we use the red as a rotation, just like before, I'm gonna draw these lines because these edges are always parallel. Basically, this edge stays the same. And it's even easier now because we have this corner here. So I don't have to find any intersections. From this corner, I just draw a line that is parallel with that one. And that's gonna be my new edge. And with that, I have my newly rotated square. And now if I turn off all the other layers, let me bring this down, turn off, and turn off. There is your newly rotated square. once again, it's not going to be super perfect because we're eyeing it and we're doing it by hand, but that's fine. And then, yeah, the next step is to keep on doing this over and over again. And then at one point, you know that if you have a square here, then if you switch into a blue color and use this line, then you can use all sorts of angles, and you don't have to think about it twice or 3 times. You can switch these angles up even more and just make sure to draw a rotation that way. You can rotate another way. You can even play around. Let me take this away. You can even say, you know what, if this is my square, I sort of want a rotation angle to be this here weird axis. You can do that because you just know that you take this line and bring it up there, or bring it in the center there. Where is it? Somewhere there. And then you can rotate your whole square around that one. Of course, here now you have to find your whole new square to put your ellipse in it, where you're going to use your rotation, and then you have to define your lines. But once you understand the basics, it should be relatively simple. And with that, we have come to the end of this little tutorial video. I hope this wasn't much of a repetition and there's enough new information for you in there. But if maybe it's new, that's great. I'm happy for that. But also, if you have questions or comments or suggestions, leave them in the comment section below. I always try to reply to them as soon as I can. But as always, the most important part is that you folks have a great time. Keep on drawing and see you in the next video. Bye bye.